Season 2, Episode 14, The Last Roundup. This is actually Episode 14 of Season 2 and starts with Applejack training for a rodeo. I feel a rodeo would probably be easier for sentient ponies because they don't have to argue with the humans who give them directions. I'm Count Lurchalot and this is Lukewarm Television. The rodeo in question Applejack is heading to is the Equestria Rodeo in Canterlot. Apple Bloom thinks Applejack is sure to win as she's won the Ponyville Rodeo 10 times and has more blue ribbons than any pony in Ponyville. That does sound like she has a good advantage, and being from the country, she probably does these exercises a lot. After the opening credits, we discover that Applejack is going to the rodeo so she can win money to fix Town Hall. Most of the damage was caused by this accident-prone pony. We all know who this is, am I right? Applejack wants to use the winnings to fix up Town Hall because the whole town has been supporting her in these competitions since she was young, and she promises to make Ponyville proud. That was a mistake, and you'll see why soon. A few days later, after Applejack leaves, they prepare for her return with, of course, a party. These ponies love to party. However, they are surprised not to be greeted by Applejack, but by a male pony. He's happy though, because turns out it's his birthday. But this, of course, soon leads to disappointment. But thankfully, they are nice enough to give him some cake. The notice from Applejack simply says the following.
Family and friends, not coming back to Ponyville. Don't worry, we'll send money soon. That's all there is.
Worried that something bad has happened to her, the main six set out to find her. This leads to a montage of the main six asking ponies all around Canterlot if they've seen Applejack. Thankfully, someone has seen her and tells them that she's headed to a town called Dodge Junction. While on the train, most of them decide to split up and look for her, all except Pinky, who has to use the toilet. I don't know why, but I don't need to know when these characters need to use the toilet. Also, in my experience, trains generally have working toilets, but what do I know? Anyway, after arriving, Pinky rushes to an outhouse demanding the current occupant hurry up. The occupant happens to be Applejack, who gets out annoyed. Of course it was Pinky who found her, she always finds her pony. They ask Applejack why she didn't return to Ponyville, but before she can answer, they are interrupted by a man named Cherry Jubilee who runs a cherry ranch in the town. She witnessed Applejack compete at the rodeo and mentions she never saw a pony win so many ribbons. She also states that Applejack mentioned she was looking for a change of scenery, so quickly hired Applejack to work for her. With the exposition out of the way, Cherry Jubilee lets Applejack catch up with her friends. They continue to question Applejack on why she moved away from Ponyville, but she dodges the question and says she felt cherries would be a nice change from apples, so she took the job and moved to Dodge Junction. She refuses to elaborate further except that she's not coming back to Ponyville. Knowing Applejack is hiding something, the other characters are determined to get her to spill the beans. Later, at the Cherry Ranch, Applejack is surprised to see the other characters have been hired as cherry sorters. Applejack agrees to work with them, but only if they promise not to ask about Ponyville. Unfortunately, they soon start bothering Applejack with intrusive questions by not directly talking about Ponyville. They ask her questions like how was Canterlot, if the rodeo was fun, and how she met Miss Jubilee. The more questions they ask, the faster Applejack runs, which isn't ideal because with 3 characters bothering her with questions, only Fluttershy and Pinky are still sorting the cherries. Eventually, Applejack runs so fast that just the 2 of them can't keep up. Fluttershy eventually asks Applejack to stop, and she screeches to a halt, which unsurprisingly causes a big mess. What is surprising is that none of them were fired over this. Feeling that they are not being firm enough, they decide to call in the big guns, which has something to do with Pinkie Pie. To cut a long story short, they get Pinkie Pie to annoy Applejack into submission by having her ask silly questions and say annoying phrases on repeat. Dr. Strange should have recruited Pinky to bargain with Dormammu. Probably would have saved a lot of time and energy. Unable to take Pinky's excessive talking anymore, Applejack finally agrees to tell the truth, but requests they do it the next day at breakfast. The other characters agree to this, but only if Applejack Pinky promises, which, as you'll remember from last season, is an unbreakable promise. Applejack agrees, which satisfies them for now. It shouldn't have though, because the next day they go to Applejack's room and she appears to have skipped town. This enrages Pinkie Pie because no pony breaks a Pinky promise. They find her waiting for a train and chase after her. Applejack, however, still doesn't want to tell the truth and tells a quartet of stallions attached to a carriage to get her the heck out of Dodge. However, then the other characters attach a carriage to Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash and give chase. Before we continue, I have a few problems with this scene. 1. Applejack is shown to be a very athletic pony and could likely run faster than any of them on her own. 2. Why are there stallions pulling a carriage in general? It would be no different than walking for any other pony. It's also shown they don't appreciate being whipped. 3. Why doesn't Rainbow Dash just fly after them? That would be a lot faster. I'm going to excuse this though because it was likely to ensure they stayed together. And 4. I think it would be better if Pinky pulled the coach. I'm not sure how fast at running Fluttershy is, but a previous episode showed Pinky could keep up with Rainbow Dash when she's flying at extreme speed. Now that that's out of the way, let's return to the story. They soon catch up, and Pinky manages to jump onto Applejack's carriage and confront her about breaking her promise. Applejack, however, points out that she didn't break the promise, as she said she would tell them everything at breakfast, and she never went to breakfast. She did this because she can't tell them the truth. You know, for the element of honesty, Applejack seems to be willing to go to extreme lengths to avoid being honest. Guess refusing to tell the truth is more honest than outright lying, but still, this isn't the first time I've wondered if she's worthy of using the element of honesty. Weirdly enough, this actually satisfies Pinky, who jumps back onto the carriage and then accidentally knocks both her and Rarity off. Rainbow Dash also refuses to go back for them because they knew what they were getting into. I restate my earlier argument of why Rainbow Dash doesn't just fly, because it would likely make this chase a lot easier, and she's clearly okay with leaving the others behind. Nitpicking, let's move on. We then have one of those classic western scenes of a train coming and someone trying to use that to escape their pursuers. While Applejack is successful, the stallions are sick of being mistreated and abandon her. Can't say I blame them. Also, Applejack forgot one important detail. Rainbow and Fluttershy are Pegasi and simply fly over. I'm going to assume this is why they chose Fluttershy to run and not Pinky. Applejack isn't ready to give up and runs off, but then Rainbow Dash takes flight and tackles her. I know the episode had to happen, but why did you not do this before? Would have made things so much easier. Having tackled Applejack, the contents of her saddlebag scatter across the ground and we see her ribbons from the rodeo. It's at this point Applejack finally confesses why she didn't come back to Ponyville. Of all the events she competed in, she didn't win a single blue ribbon, meaning she won no prize money. I'm confused, is there no prize for second place? This is why she took the job at the Cherry Ranch, because after the send-off she was given, she didn't want to come back empty-hooved, so she took the job to send Ponyville money over time. More than anything, she didn't want them to think she's a failure. The others don't care, however, because as her friends, they don't care what place she comes in, and that she's still number one in their book. We could all use friends like this. Applejack is still worried about not being able to bring back money for the town hall, but Fluttershy reminds her that they can always find alternative ways to fix it. But if she doesn't come back, they'll never fix the hole in their heart. Okay, this is getting a bit sappy for me, let's move on. As they return to Ponyville, Applejack writes her letter to the princess. She learnt that while it's hard, there's no reason to hide if you didn't do as well as you hoped. It's better to run to your friends and family than to run away from your problems. As the episode ends, we see that they never went back for Pinky and Rarity, who are using an alternative method to get home. I don't know whether to laugh at or feel sorry for them here. This is an interesting episode for me because while I can understand the desire to keep your failures hidden and being unable to confess them to those you care about, I again question if Applejack should be allowed to be the element of honesty considering the great lengths she went to avoid telling the truth. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you at the next review.